Fuck it, we've all. I said as the camera went live, hello everybody, welcome to Ramblemancy. I think Nico said it best in the chat, which is time for some spicy opinions. That's right, we're doing TTRPG hot takes tonight, which sounds like a very special occasion, but in reality, it's just us codifying the thing we do anyway all the time. So, so yeah, it's just kind of an
Spencer Campbell
excuse.
posted a GIF, I think from Family Guy, no, from The Simpsons earlier today, and it's Homer Simpson laying on the couch saying something to the effect of "Everyone else is so stupid," with reference to tabletop games, and that's just what we're
Yeah,
doing.
yeah, exactly. We're here at Rule of Lore. We are notorious for telling other people that they are playing the wrong way and telling them that their fun is wrong, and that we are in fact correct and the only ones who are correct.
Yeah, that's the whole subject of our 5-year anniversary
Yeah,
stream
that's
last
been
week,
our
is that
entire brand the whole time.
we have objectively correct opinions
Exactly.
about media.
That's yeah. That was. Can't even keep a straight face with saying that.
I can't either.
Well, anyway.
I was literally talking to my roommates earlier tonight about what I think has made me the best at recognizing the good things that people do, even in like a subpar like final product, and it was voice seminar.
Yeah. Yeah.
Better than like having to give writing feedback, better than being a writing tutor, better even than my education program about giving feedback. It was having to sit in a voice seminar and listen to somebody butcher Per La Gloria for the 5th time in this month.
Oh no.
But sitting there and going, but I can see the places that you have made very intentional improvements in your technique, and I can see where those will go, and learning how to like reinforce that while also saying like, here's some things you can still work on, but I can see that you've done these things. Anyway.
Yeah, totally. I could see that. Anyway, as we said, we're doing some TTRPG hot takes tonight, and probably what that'll turn into is just us generally talking about TTRPG stuff. Most likely,
Yeah.
it takes a lot of energy to get like real riled up about TTRPG stuff, and like who has that? Who has that kind of energy?
Right.
Aside from people on the internet. Anyway, which I
They've
realize,
got
having said
balance.
that, we kind of technically are
Are on the
currently
internet?
people on the. Doesn't matter. You know what I'm saying. The point is, we're getting
Different people on the
different
internet.
people on the internet. The people who are wrong. No.
Uh,
Okay. This is just us, sort of riffing because I don't know how to start these episodes. So
this is perfect.
I don't think we have much in the way of announcements. I'll just kind of reiterate some of the stuff we said last time, which is that Patreon is in the process of getting restructured again, to sort of make it more usable and interesting for you and easier for us to fulfill on a consistent and timely basis, which is a thing that we've sort of been struggling with over the past like 6 months or so. So that's currently in the process of happening, but until that happens, it's going to be mostly the same as it has been. We have some promising stuff for our world building tier, who has been sorely neglected for quite some time, and I'm pretty excited about what we got planned for you guys. So if you are still at the world building tier and you've been there all this time, fucking thank you, because y'all have been getting no love from us for a while, and I appreciate it so much, so much. And so, but we've got stuff coming for you guys. On a semi-related note, World Builders, are your backs hurting from fucking carrying us this whole time? Yeah.
Along with the World Builder tier, will be coming like a massage gun for everyone.
Yeah.
You're not missing out on leg day. Their legs are at peak condition.
So yeah, but if you are also considering joining the world building tier, there will be actually some cool stuff that I think will be appealing to quite a few of you out there. So keep an eye out for that. We'll likely be rolling out the changes probably all at once, but we might do them incrementally. We'll see. So just keep an eye out for that, and we'll let you know when it happens. Film schedule for Tomorrow is Dead is back on. We will be continuing recording. We're going to be focusing on recording the remaining episodes before we focus on airing them, so that we can kind of not split our focus and energy on that. So we will keep you up to date on the back half of season 2 as we progress. That's it. That's those are the announcements, I think. Yeah. Oh, I actually finally remembered an announcement that I should have been giving every Friday. On the one Friday it's not actually relevant, which is that I also on Saturdays, most Saturdays except for tomorrow, am playing in a Star Trek Adventures campaign called Star Trek Intelligence. I only have a couple. We've just started season 2. I only have a couple more episodes personally that I am going to be in Star Trek Intelligence. And you can see those Saturday at 3 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Central, over on Rune and Relic. And I finally remembered for once to give that announcement on a Friday where it's not actually relevant for tomorrow. So that tracks.
It do be that way sometimes.
Yeah. So not tomorrow, because tomorrow, the last Saturday of every month, we take off. But next Saturday. So, yeah. Let's see. Other than that, I think those are announcements. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think so. Yeah.
Before we get into the hot takes, I have to talk. I do have a way to start this one. I have arrived for the bus on time today.
You arrived for the bus right on time, didn't you?
I started to tell the story before the cameras went live, and I just have to talk about the best marketing I've ever seen in my fucking life. And like, granted, this is for a product that markets itself, but so picture it. I'm sitting on the mat at the gym. If you aren't aware, and you probably are if you follow me on social media, because I'm insufferable about it, because that's how boulderers be. But I go to a climbing gym, and I'm basically just like, I'm sitting on the mat talking to a couple of people that I've been climbing next to, and we're sitting in this part of the gym, like next to like the big like top up boulder that you can climb all the way on top of. There's another like wall in front of us, like a cave behind us, and there's this really set of pretty windows that look out onto the parking lot. And some trees and stuff behind, and also it happens to be like the accessibility ramp, so that people in like wheelchairs, or if people want to like pull things up, they have a way to like get those into the building is right there, so you can see people like walking along the sidewalk, coming and going, which is kind of a fun little thing when you're coming in, or when you're sitting there like watching people come in. And I'm talking to somebody, and she just like looks like she's in the like mid sentence, and just goes like cuts off and goes like, over my shoulder. And I turn and look out the window, and what do I see but like a mother and daughter coming in, and she's pulling a wagon behind her, and I expect to see I see a kid like in a cute little coat like trucking along next to her, carrying some stuff in her arms, and mom's pulling the cart, and I'm like, oh, that's cute, but I'm not quite sure what like merited like whoa. And so I look closer, and I see what's in the wagon, and I'm just gonna.
Sure. Yeah, you got Yep.
You got.
Yeah, like
tricky.
That's like, I had never, my gym does this really cool thing where like every month there's a new like local artist whose originals they feature that you can purchase, by like and take home at the end of the month, and they do all kinds of like cool events and stuff. But I've never seen, apart from like climbing shoe people, doing like having like tabling there, but like this kid and her mom were just like set up in the fucking lobby like as people were walking out, and they came in at like 4:00 p.m. and I was like, oh, that's so smart.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my god.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Oh, you have anyway.
Yep.
Nothing like that.
Mm-hmm.
Like
show up with your little table and your big pile of Girl Scout cookies and your adorable like 5-year-old daughter. And I was like, God, the Girl Scouts know how to do it.
Yeah, man. They've run multiple decades long marketing campaigns. Truly,
yeah. Truly, Nico, fantastic business sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anyway, that's unrelated to tabletop. I just thought it was a fun story to start the night off with.
No, very good. That was So yeah, I saw Nico, I saw Odds and Ends karaoke night. Welcome back. It's good to have you here. And oh my gosh, we have Free Range Man in the chat, and also
Wow.
right
Where
here.
is he? Where is he?
Wow.
Oh, yeah, that's me.
Wow. Uh,
Wow. Oh, not that again.
change of plans. This whole episode is just gonna be give us your best Owen Wilson impression.
Oh,
Wow.
Oh.
No, we're not doing that. It's gonna be hard to translate that from the chat
need-
to like,
We need
anyway.
Jesse back here for that.
I know.
I gotta-
in the old days.
I'm really excited for the people that we do have here in chat tonight because I literally said this right before we went live, Nico. I was like, oh, I'm really glad that I'm glad that Nico Derpanduin is here tonight because he has amazing tabletop RPG hot takes, but also karaoke night. I'm really excited for your hot takes because I love playing in your D&D game.
Yeah.
And you have one of the most unique GMing styles that I have had the pleasure to play with, and so I'm really curious about your hot takes.
So we got one to start with, which from Nico, and I think I agree with this. Nico says, hot take, the TTRPG industry is really bad at marketing for people outside itself. I agree. And I can even point to where and why, because D&D is so like huge and wide reaching at this point that they don't really have to do it. And so like, but then for anybody else in the TTRPG industry, yeah, they do kind of market only within the people who are already in the community instead of trying to find ways of bringing people in, which I guess I'm sure there are reasons for it. It's not a criticism, I don't think, from my end anyway. It's just that yeah. No, I think I agree with that hot take. Not even sure I would consider that a hot take, to be honest.
I think you can stop that hot take after the word marketing.
Yeah,
I think the tabletop RPG industry is really bad at marketing. Full stop.
yeah,
I think that there are reasons for that, but I think if you stop it after marketing, it's not a hot take. If you stop it, if you continue to people outside itself, then it becomes a bit of a hot take because I think a lot of people think that their marketing is for everyone or like they're marketing to lots of people, but the reality of it is that this actually takes me back to a different table. This is very similar, honestly, to another tabletop RPG hot take I've seen, which is that one-page RPGs are not actually good ways to introduce people to games.
That was mine.
And I think that's a great take. Because as fast as they are to read, if it's a person's first RPG, those assume that you know a lot of things already. Yeah. And that's the problem with a lot of tabletop RPG marketing is like we as people are really in indie RPG are really, really, really bad about understanding that most people know mostly what D&D is, and it stops there.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I agree with what Odd said, which is, hey, we can't be good at everything and we can't all have money to hire experts. And I think that kind of goes hand in hand, not just with the reach of your advertising, but also in terms of like, I feel like for advertising, you require a certain amount of, like, to your point, John, about like thinking that like we're advertising well to the people. In order to actually be confident in whether or not you are advertising well, you have to do a lot of market research that also either requires experts or it requires a lot of your own time to learn how to do and then do it. So I think I agree with what Odd said here. It's like, yeah, it kind of comes down to that a little bit.
It's one of the pressures I think that game designers face to be on social media a lot, because you don't necessarily have. I remember talking to somebody who works for an ad company, somebody who who worked for a marketing company that I met at Gen Con this year. Bree and I sat down and talked to them after Gen Con, and it was a very enlightening conversation because the numbers that they were throwing out were insane, right? Mm-hmm. They were talking about like 10K ad spends.
Yeah.
Like spending $10,000
yep.
pre-campaign on advertising. And I'm like, and I'm just sitting here like, Crave Loop is sitting at like $3,500 as of today, and like Terminus, which did explosively, ridiculously well for Brianna's Kickstarter, was I think just shy of 12K.
Yeah.
And that was insanely good. And so like to hear somebody who works in marketing quote a good number to spend on advertising for a successful, like a super successful campaign being the amount of money that we made entirely for our project, I'm just like, this is wild.
Yep.
So yeah, like
yeah.
to Odds' point, we can't we can't be good at everything, and we can't have all the money to hire experts. But that's also kind of where like you have to, like, as a designer, or like even if you're an actual play, right? You just have to be on and like see what other people are doing that is effective for them. And then you have to like spend time like thinking, okay, like, so why did this work for them? Is it something that could work for me? How do how can I replicate getting that kind of reach? Because
that is the act of doing that is exhausting in other ways beyond just what it takes to do that job correctly, because being on all the time also means that you are, because of the way social media works, you're sort of subject to a lot of the worst parts of social media just by the nature of having to be on it in order to do your job right. And it's not great. It's not great at all.
I really, really love Odds' next hot take, which is, I think another hot take is that Kickstarter is bad for the industry, which is that the nuanced version is that it's great for people who need it, and people with audiences use it to market, and that hurts what backers expect and gets into customer psychology. And yes, yes, Odds, I think it's bad. I think it's not good that the indie tabletop basically has to rely on crowdfunding. It's in that way. I think it's demoralizing when you don't fund, and it's very demoralizing to have like the wild variation that's like algorithm dependent between projects. But also like that like crowdfunding platforms, especially lately, are like flooded with AI generated projects with super low goals. They're flooded with basically pre-sales for companies who do not need to be using Kickstarter to do it, but are using it for marketing purposes or whatever.
Not to mention the fact that like it kind of goes hand in hand with Nico's take, which about being bad at advertising outside of itself, right? Because like if you're, in order to make a Kickstarter successful, you're gonna be wanting to market to people who like want the thing that you are gonna get, which is typically people who are already in TTRPG. And if all of your like focus on like marketing and stuff is on the people who will spend the money on your thing, then that's less ad money to spend on getting people into the thing. And like,
I remember like a game like several years ago that I saw that was trying to like pull together a crowdfunding campaign. And I saw them marketing a lot, trying to like convert D&D players. And like that was one of those things where I was just like, it's not going to work. Like, you might have made a really cool high fantasy game, but that's not your angle. That's not your angle. You're not going to convert D&D players, not in numbers that matter. You have to understand that your marketing needs to be to indie tabletop, or if you're trying to make a game that's more accessible than D&D, then your marketing niche is people who haven't played yet but are interested, like fantasy nerds, board game nerds, like whatever, like the average person who thinks that the art on your box is cool and could maybe be convinced to get a couple of their friends together to play it. That's like, you have to think more about like who you're marketing to.
I want to first of all say hello, Kate, and welcome. Good to see you. I also want to make sure that Odds' first hot take here doesn't get sort of lost in the mix, because I find this very fascinating, and John and Freeman both know that I have big opinions about this one, which is that TTRPG industry is trying too much to be like Hollywood, and actually probably has split the industry into two halves. And I think I agree. Although I don't know specifically what you mean odds, but I know for myself where I have seen it is particularly within actual play. Um, there have
That's
been
where my
times where
brain
I've,
went.
yeah, exactly. Like I've had so many conversations about this, and I might have even said on this very stream that like I've seen somebody in actual play refer to themselves as being in the entertainment industry, and I'm like, no, no, no. You work in entertainment, but you are not in the entertainment industry. I promise you, you're not in the entertainment industry. Um, and those are not the same thing because for most actual plays, and that not all, obviously, but for most actual plays, and I will say that was the case for this person who I saw saying this and talking about being in the entertainment industry. If the entertainment industry is the Super Bowl, then actual plays are stuck in traffic on the way to the Super Bowl in a different fucking town. It's just it's not the same thing. Working in an entertainment field is not the same thing as being part of the entertainment industry because the entertainment industry is a very codified, specific thing that has very specific like boundaries. It's a huge problem, right? Because like entry into the entertainment industry is a hard thing to do and is specifically designed to like weed out people who are coming
I
in who
would
you know
I think my take on it is basically that if you are on Dimension 20 or you are at
yes,
Critical Role, you're in the entertainment industry.
right.
If you are
If you're on an
like
actual play and you also additionally work actually in the entertainment industry, that's
Yeah.
also a different thing. Like that
If
I will
that
say
was
right,
their
that's not the
first
case
job.
for this person. Like I will say
yeah,
that was this person was specifically referring to like their work in actual plays. I'm like that's not what this is, you guys.
Yeah.
That's not. Um
I really also big fan of Kate's take, which is my current hot take is that not everyone needs to be on or have an actual play.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I do
Yep.
both. They're so different. The blurring of lines is wild. If you work for a production house, fine. If it's in your house, not the same
Not
thing.
the same thing.
Um,
It's not.
yeah, like Dropout has an actual play. They are a sketch like a filmed
Yeah.
sketch comedy organization that does some really weird, cool, like kind of avant-garde stuff that I adore. Um, but they like that's entertainment industry. Or like CR is just big enough, and the way that they run, they're,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
but I went to a
But
panel
yeah.
at PAX U about using UI UX tips for board games and tabletop RPGs, and I thought it would be like designers and UI UX people, and it was all actual play people. One was a layout artist and consultant, the others are DMs and AP actors. Really, who? Man, that makes me a little bit mad. That makes me a little bit mad.
Yeah.
I'm like, at least in terms like it just feels like it was poorly marketed. It should have like they should have been clear that it was like directed at actual play, like overlays or like board game streaming, because like board game streaming is like a real thing. Do that shit.
Yeah.
Um,
I
but
I want to point out, yeah, like to go kind of keep talking real quick about Kate's hot take about not everyone needs to be, and then current point, which is I have so many friends coming to me who want to start APs. My question to them is always why, and I agree. This is a huge, huge thing that also I have ranted to John and Freeman specifically about. If you have the thought, I want to have an actual play, you cannot go from there full send AP, let's go, turn on the cameras and let's go. You have to then have the follow up, multiple follow up thoughts of why am I doing this? How do I achieve that goal? What steps do I need to take to get there? And like what are my short term goals for reaching that? Like you can't you I look.
Yeah, it
You
just doesn't happen.
yeah.
if you like, listen, if you want to be able to watch your game back later, if you want to be able to share your game with your friends,
Mm-hmm.
OBS is very easy to install.
Absolutely.
And if all you're going to do is record a single application and a single audio source, maybe two audio sources if you want to include like ambient sounds and you're the one playing them, that's pretty easy to do.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's well within, if you can use a laptop computer, you can do that.
Yeah.
And you can do that, and you can slap that up on your personal YouTube channel, like leave them unlisted. You can make them public if you want.
Totally.
Like that's a thing that you can do. It doesn't have to be like an actual play, like a
Yeah.
produced thing. Like you can just record a game to you and friends. You can show it to your friends and stuff later.
Totally.
Um,
And like I will also say, like, it's important not just so for your own sake to know what you're doing and what you're working towards and why you're doing it, right? It's also important for the people that you're working with, because you are going to be working with other people. Like, you are going to be. And if you invite somebody onto your actual play and you don't know what you're trying to do with it, you don't know how, like, you haven't set up your specific your specific niche for, like, how professional are you trying to be with this, and those expectations are not clear to the people that you have invited to be on your actual play, you're going to experience friction at best and full-on frustration and cataclysmic, like catastrophic failure at worst, because that's just the nature of not properly setting and communicating expectations, especially on something as complex with as many moving parts as an actual play. Like, you gotta do it. I'm sorry, but you can't just go, let's turn on the cameras and go. Guessed it on stuff and been like, why am I here? 100%. But yeah, so yeah, it's one of those things. Like, you have to ask the follow-up questions if you're doing an actual play, and I totally agree. Um, I'll give some of my TTRPG hot takes. And some of you in chat will be familiar with some of these either because you've heard me talk about them here before, or because we were probably recently having this conversation off camera. Um, which so, like, one of my big ones is, and I think this is actually sort of, I don't know, maybe this is not as hot a take as I think it is, but it just, from my perspective, it seems like it is. Um, I will say this. As far as running TTRPGs, I don't think that there is any piece of advice that anybody can give you that will always be true or always be untrue. I think there is, like, I am immediately suspicious of any piece of GMing advice that contains the words always or never. Because almost every time somebody has... nope, fuck that. Every time somebody has given me a piece of advice where they're like, never do this, it never works, or you should always do this, I can always think of an exception every time. I can always think of exceptions or ways to make it work. And all it takes is one edge case for a piece of information that contains all or never to be incorrect. It only takes one edge case, and most things like that will have an edge case scenario. So, like, that's my TTRPG hot take for the moment. Is, yeah.
So, also depends on the table. Your table is a big thing too, I think, as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That kind of, like, the table is the folks you play with, definitely. Like, it. One of my hot takes at one point was, like, I don't think the system matters so much. It's like the it's not the system. It's the folks.
Yeah.
The people you play with. I don't know if that's really a hot take. It's like lukewarm.
I think in some circles it would be a hot take, because I feel like there's a lot of, like, not to say that those circles are, like, wrong, for thinking otherwise. It's just that I think we naturally tend to put a lot of emphasis on like, hey, I have this idea and let's find the best system to run that idea. Now, I don't believe that every system, that you can pick up any system, do any random idea with it, and make it work. But I do think that, to your point, Freeman, you can do some weird shit with D&D with the right table that D&D was never intended to do. just by nature of like how well you all sort of synergize in terms of like what you want to get out of the experience of playing at the table, and
Exactly.
knowing what the expectations are, and like wanting to like the everybody's like willingness to play along with the GM's nonsense, right? Like that's um so yeah, that's I think I can see that being a hot take in some circles, because I think there is
Definitely.
a big tendency, particularly now in the like massive renaissance of the TTRPG, the golden age of TTRPG. Um, I think, particularly now, there's this inclination to have like a bespoke system for every like niche idea that people have for stories, and don't get me wrong, some of them need it. Some of them need it, but I also think that you
Mhm.
can sometimes just get away with doing your weird idea in whatever system you're currently working on, if you have the right table.
Mhm.
So, yeah.
Yeah. And like what I will say is I've been quiet for this part because I wanted to let y'all finish, because I have heard like near knockdown drag out fights at Gen Con
I
between some
bet. I
colleagues.
bet.
Like I think they were selling like a t-shirt or a sticker that said "System doesn't matter." And one of the folks that I was working with was about ready to fucking, not actually, I want to be clear, but like was like mock throwing hand, like ready to throw hands
Mm-hmm.
over that, because they're like, system does fucking matter. And I have seen a lot of people write some very interesting like articles or blog posts about the impact that system does have
Mm-hmm.
on a game. But I think to your point, Freeman, I think that depends on how skilled, I want to say, people are at playing tabletop RPGs. Because that's a conversation that we had with Sam DeLev a long time ago on
Mm-hmm.
the show, is that
Right.
reading and playing tabletop RPGs is a skill, right? And I think if your group of people is not somebody who like readily adapt to like new game systems and stuff, then like system matters a lot less.
Yeah.
Or if you're not if you're with a group that has a really good dynamic, like system matters a lot less in terms of the kind of things that you can
Totally.
do.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Now, that said, certain systems that are sort of like, I will say from the perspective of a GM, some systems just make it easier to run some types of games, so because they have built-in support for them. But yeah.
that's a good hot take.
Yeah.
It's a good hot, like, it's a good hot take when none of us really agree.
Yeah. I mean, like, I think I mostly agree with Freeman's point, but I also, again, like I said before, I can find the edge cases.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I used to be the same, Nico. I used to be in the system doesn't matter camp, and I have the longer I think I've been a designer, the more I've swung to the other, like the pendulum has swung to the other side of the spectrum, where I'm like, no, actually, system does matter a lot.
Hmm.
Because this was a conversation, Lucas, that you and I kind of had after I ran that Destiny inspired one shot.
That's right. Yeah, that is
Um,
this is that conversation basically. Yeah.
hmm for those watching, I stapled some elements that are, if anyone here is familiar with the Lumen system or Light, or even like Nova, or I don't think Hunt, but like Nova by Spencer Campbell. Like I took a system that sort of resembles that in terms of like resource generation and use, and stapled that to D&D, to make like a very Destiny 2 feeling dungeon run. It went pretty well, actually, in terms of the mechanics that I had dreamed up. Hunt is Lumen 2.0. Okay, that's what I thought. That's what I thought. It's like, because I knew that Hunt was basically just resource management, um, and was like diceless, healthless, kind of, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, we definitely had that conversation about. Yeah. There are some aspects about like from certain play styles or game types that cannot be replicated easily in a system like D&D. or and really just in any system, right? Like there are some systems that are going to be better suited to replicating certain play styles and game types than others. I think, John, you found a pretty good way of making that concept of Destiny 2 stuff work within the bounds of 5th edition D&D, in a way that felt satisfying and fun. I also think that it worked because it was a one-shot, and it would definitely not hold up over the course of a longer game. So, like, I think the great work that you did with that would fall apart over an extended period of time. And,
Oh
like,
yeah. The shit that I made for that game was like I'm firmly of the opinion that balance is bullshit in Dungeons and Dragons. I think
a good
that you
hot
should
take right
let
there too.
people... Yeah, that's the hot take that I'm dovetailing into, is that balance is bullshit in your tabletop RPG. As long as it doesn't yuck anybody else's yum at the table, let them do cool shit.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, too much of Rangers' power is tied up in their ability to generate resources. Fuck off! I want to shoot a guy with an arrow for 30 damage. The wizard gets to do it at level 5. Why can't I?
Yeah,
exactly.
Totally. Yeah.
Anyway, that's my other take. But yeah, to finish my thought, the items that I made for that game, and I am somebody who is of the mind that balance is bullshit in 5e, were objectively imbalanced. Lucas used one of them to deal 150 damage in a single shot to
and that was a pretty low, like below average roll that I did for damage.
Yeah. I had basically set up a 3.5e version of like stacking crit and doubling buffs, that allowed a 30 odd damage roll to be, to double to 75 and then double again to triple to, it was 25 that tripled to 75, but then doubled because the enemy was vulnerable.
It was a triple crit that basically dovetailed with some like fire vulnerability, and yeah.
So we went from 25 on the roll to 75 to doubled by the enemy's vulnerability to 150.
Yeah, which was nuts. And that was on 10d6. So like real low to get 25 on 10d6. It's not great.
Rune and Relic, I think I agree with your take as far as actual play goes. Rune and Relic's take was, my hot take is, I don't think we're in the golden age of tabletop anymore, and rather in a TTRPG adjacent space. I think I agree as far as actual play goes. I might not be I might be biased because I'm in design land, but there's conventions are fucking huge right now, and I want to circle back to something that one of Nico's like kind of takes earlier, which is that the single most important marketing that you can do is putting your books in people's hands as a creator of RPGs is like huge. Yeah, brick and mortar and like my consignment through IPR are like some of the most consistent ways that I sell games. It's not itch as much as I would like it to be digital, but that's that the conventions have been huge for like physical, like people who like sell books and games and zines and stuff like that. That's what I meant. I should have been more totally. I think I agree with that take. I think the industry has like settled out into, as I've discussed earlier,
like a flan in a cupboard. Anyway. That's what it feels like to me. That's the first place my brain went whenever I think about like what has happened to like actual plays over the course of the last few years. That's the first phrase that comes into mind, like a flan in a cupboard.
Oh goodness me!
How dare you?
It's how dare you?
Oh,
I can't believe you've done this. I cannot believe this. This shouldn't be a hot take because this should be obvious, but there's those who need to hear it. But the PDF version should be the same amount as the physical book.
Okay. All right. Now I could see that being a hot take. Explain.
Yes. All right. I would say because it's for I'm thinking specifically because I don't think when I'm paying for the 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 the, the game or whatever it is, I'm not paying for the process of the book being made. I'm paying for the work that went into the writing and the artwork into it, I think. I
Yeah.
love physical copy of book though. Like
Mm-hmm.
I'm all over that. I just think I think they should be the same price. I think that
So
they're
sorry, to clarify, do you think you think that PDFs should be the same price as the books, or do you think that books should be the same price
yeah.
as the... Okay, that's what I thought you meant, but I just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I think. That's what I
God,
think
I
I'm
would.
trying to say. Yeah.
God, I would love it if people would buy digital copies of my games for physical prices. Oh,
Yeah.
oh,
Yeah.
that would be so fucking nice.
I I could definitely, like, I think it is a
Yeah.
reasonable place to exist. Like that like saying that, I think that is a reasonable place to exist. However, I think in most instances I do think that would be considered a hot take. I think it counts. It counts. Counts as a hot take.
That's genuinely a
Yeah.
hot take that I listen. It's a hot take that I would direct. Like I would literally
You would
benefit
directly
from.
benefit.
Yeah. Like
No,
if
like,
I could,
I
if
totally
I could
agree with it,
charge,
with that take, but I also think that, like, it's definitely a controversial one for sure. Like,
yeah,
yeah.
Yeah.
I think and not to get into capitalism sucks,
Right.
Oh, but
but
also totally to do that.
also to totally do that. I think that in a world where people had like if we lived in a period of time right now where people had more disposable income than they do on average, I think PDF like I think I'll also give a lukewarm take here, and I would say I think that PDF prices would be higher.
Yeah.
I would think people would be able to charge more.
Yeah.
So cold take, yeah, ice fucking cold take. Capitalism sucks.
Just instantaneous hypothermia from that take.
Yeah.
Um uh
Captain Cold called. That ended right on what he said.
yeah.
Rule of my color scheme, baby.
Rune and Relic, thanks for stopping by. Good to see you. Um let's see. What was I going to say? So there are some other hot takes in here in the chat that I saw that I don't want them to get too far away. I
don't know if you meant that as a joke, but that's very funny to me. Which is, how does this affect artists being unable to price their work appropriately?
Yeah.
Me gently taking every single one of my artist friends by the shoulders and shaking them while I say, "Charge more for your work."
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll real quick throw one of my hot takes out there. I think this is maybe less of a hot take than it was when I first had this realization. But I think it still is pretty controversial, and I'll say this. This is technically two hot takes that are kind of, they're sort of in the same area, so I'll say them at the same time. Number one, I am completely fine in 5e. I think XP leveling is good, actually. Okay? I think it is poorly implemented in rules as written, but I think it is good, actually. I think it's... this is the part where it's a hot take. I think it's better than milestone leveling. Anyway, that's the part of this that's a hot take. I'm gonna stop being a fucking coward and just come out and say it. Two, I think people are way too afraid of numbers in TTRPGs, and numbers good, actually. That's it. That's math is good, actually, is my take.
Yeah, good.
That's my take in TTRPGs. Anyway, those are my two big hot takes. That's it. I think those are probably my hottest takes on as far
I
as.
think, yeah, it's good though. I think shopping in your RPG games can be good.
Yeah. Okay.
It
yeah.
really depends. I think it can be good. I think
Are you specifically
I pulled it off
thinking?
once.
Are you specifically thinking about that one time that Yorith went to Gnome Depot and bought a whole bunch of stuff, and it was just like this whole exchange back and forth where he didn't know what to do with the...
Yeah.
He was like,
I'm stuck on Gnome Depot.
Yeah.
It's good.
I had a lot of
I
great
think
names for
shopping-
shops in back in High Rest.
Gnome Depot is very good. I think that what a lot of people run into I don't know, like I personally like I like that take because I personally I don't like shopping when it's just like we all have to like one by one wait for the DM to do stuff. I like shopping when it's like diegetic. I love it when it's part of the game. Like
Mm-hmm.
I like more and more I'm really enchanted with the aspects of like West Marches style D&D where it's like, okay, you guys started a central location that you always start at with familiar characters, and now you take a random ass group of people out, you go do your adventure, you come back, and then next time you all shop for your weapons, you upgrade your gear, you like I like when games
Yeah.
have this is the build phase, like fucker, like play with the Legos,
Mm-hmm.
you know, shop for your stuff because everybody can just kind of like tinker around. It's right there, it's all there for you to play, and then it switches to now go do stuff phase. I like that.
Yeah.
I personally think that's fun. I want to see that in more games.
Yeah. I will say as a GM, I only used to do like to like role play out shopping because I thought it's what you were supposed to do. And I thought that was like, you know, whatever. Nowadays, I'm just like, I don't know, man. Whatever you need, as long as you got the gold for it, just look it up and put it in there. And if it's not an item that's like doesn't have the price in the books, like if it's something that I'm like homebrewing or just sort of like throwing in or whatever, then ask me. And I'll tell you. Uh,
Odds is an
Oh,
interesting point, which is yeah, that's what people keep trying to homebrew with downtime.
yeah,
yeah.
true. Sorry, what were you saying, Freeman?
I was just gonna say we also have a bigger table of
That's
folks too.
true.
That would
We
be
also
it'd be a little that would hurt.
that's a good point. Yes, that is fair. So maybe my assessment is pretty specific to my. I yeah. What kind of back to my hot take here, and then I'm coming for Nico's hot take from earlier.
The one that I
Um,
pinned.
yeah, yeah. Odds said Milestone relies so heavily on the DM, and hot take the DM in D&D has too much work, often subjective work to do. Thank you. Yes, that's exactly why I have that opinion. That's exactly the reason. Because more often than not, it's so heavily reliant. Also, as a DM, I do not enjoy the experience of finishing a session that I've put a lot of work into and whatever, and then having players at the end of every session going, "So do we level up?" I don't enjoy that experience. And that is basically what happens with Milestone. Because either your players have to fully trust that the DM is going to, like, there either has to be fully perfect 100% communication, often facilitated by the DM, therefore adding more plates for them to spin, in order to, like, convey specific expectations as to, like, what needs to happen for the next milestone. Or the players have to 100% trust that the GM is not going to hold them back on purpose for an extended period of time just for the sake of doing so. Um, and it just you gotta look XP. All I'm saying. It's an object. Yes, it still requires work on the part of the GM, but it's objective work, not subjective work, which means that you can like directly just assign values, and those values can totally be arbitrary, like a lot of other stuff in D&D is. And you can just it's objective, right? And I recognize that on some level, you can make you can just be like, oh, here's how much XP do they need to level up? Well, let me make sure to give them that much XP, and that's basically the same thing as milestone leveling, but it doesn't feel like that from the part of the players, and it cuts out that whole thing where the players are constantly asking you if they level up because they objectively know whether they have or haven't leveled up. Anyway, that
I think that D&D could solve a lot of that by putting a section in the Dungeon Master's Guide that says challenge that explains challenge rating.
yeah. Although
Like if they put a 2-page spread in the DMG or in the player's handbook that said we expect we expect your party to have this many encounters per day, and that's what challenge rating is based off of. So if you're planning this many encounters per long rest, you need to adjust the XP that your characters are getting by these numbers, multiply it by this much, basically. And I think that would genuinely help a lot more people. I know that we hate math. I know that we hate math, but like your phone calculator's right there.
Yeah.
2 times whatever the XP number is times the number of monsters is pretty easy to tap into this thing.
My thoughts on the CR system, if they explained it, it wouldn't, I don't think it would be that helpful, because it would just be a section that says IDK LOL, and that was the whole section.
That's mostly for the purposes of XP, honestly.
Yeah.
Is what I was
No, you're right.
But...
No, you're right. You're right. I wanted to take a moment to fire some shots at the fact that CR is nonsense. So yeah.
Yeah, if they like, I know, again, I know math bad, but if they told me like the expected total challenge number that your party should encounter in one day is this, divided among this many to this many encounters, depending on how deadly you want them to be, like, the game already has a page of mechanics for what happens when I want to tackle someone to the ground. You can put that in there. It's fine.
Okay. Yeah, I agree. I will say this. I just read Nico's hot take from earlier, and I really wanna get into it, because it's good. I like it. Real hot take, and a hill that I will die on. Writing your campaign/story around your system's mechanics and themes will result in a better game than trying to find a system to fit a story you already wrote out. I 100% could not agree more. It's a little bit like a lesson that I had to learn in college when I was writing papers. You don't come up with, and it's so backwards from the way that I was always taught to write papers, right? You don't come up with a thesis and then go find supporting evidence. You do the research and then come up with a thesis based on that supporting evidence. Like, it's one of the things that's such bullshit about, like, I loved a lot of my time being an English major, and it has served me every day since I graduated and before that. It has been a huge boon to me in almost everything that I've done. What I will say is that the one thing that always pissed me off about it is any exercise where we were like writing papers where the first thing that we did was come up with a thesis statement before we even write our papers. I'm like, that's so backwards. That is so backwards. Because that's literally a logical fallacy called informally referred to as the Texas sharpshooter, where you make you shoot the barn, right, and then you draw your target around the barn, right? That's around where you shot, where the bullet hit. That's literally a logical fallacy, and yet that's how like so much of paper writing was taught to me. And it wasn't until hear this, I want you to hear this. It wasn't until my senior year in college, when I was literally writing my senior paper, that I realized that I found my thesis statement from doing research, and I was like, oh, and all of a sudden the light bulb clicked on.
Yep.
Probably the best paper in college I ever wrote.
Yeah, like as somebody who was, you can plug the command in, as somebody who was an English teacher for a while, like, going thesis first has its place in certain things. Like, practicing writing thesis statements is an important part of learning how to structure your essay. You should not have your students write their thesis statements every single time for the rest of time. At college level courses, you should probably not be leading with thesis statements. You should probably have them start with a few questions or ideas that they want to explore and research, and then derive a thesis from their findings.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Like what Odds just said. That's what a hypothesis is. Then you do research and go, why is this different? Exactly. Because you start with a question. You don't start with a thesis statement. You don't start with a claim. You start with a question. You go in. You do research. You're like, oh, it seems that my question led me to some interesting things. And now you basically have the beginnings of your paper built in to your process, because now you have a juxtaposition of your original thoughts versus the claims that you like, the actual what the research actually showed up. Sorry, we're not talking about TTRPGs anymore. I'm just ranting about the way that paper writing is taught. But it's relevant. It's relevant to what Nico said because it's the same thing. It's, trying to fit your, like, write a story and then fit it around, like, find a system that fits it, as opposed to finding a system that you want to play and then wrapping your building. It's a superstructure around which you build your story, your campaign. It's just, yeah.
It makes sense. Yeah. It pains me to imagine it the other way. That's why I'm like, well, yeah, this makes sense.
And I've done it both ways, and I have definitely had more success sometimes than others. Sometimes you have a strong enough concept and a system that just happens to fit perfectly with it. Case in point, Tomorrow is Dead. Case in point, right? We did Tomorrow is Dead on a very specific concept. It's children. So we were like kids on bikes, right? It worked. But the problem is, but that was designed around the idea that, like, we're playing kids on bikes, but we can very much put zombies into this. But then season 2 came around, and we're like, well, we can't play kids on bikes anymore. So we need a system.
We're not playing kids anymore.
Right, so we need a system. And it just happened to work out that the Walking Dead RPG went on Kickstarter right around the time where we were starting. It just happened to work out. And it's a great system. That doesn't always play out that way.
I will say, however, it worked out well for us, but season 2 is tonally very different than season 1.
Oh boy.
And that is, it is the result of the system we're playing.
Yeah.
The Walking Dead RPG has mechanized character relationships and mechanized, like, personal flaws and like trauma, basically. Yep. Something that Kids on Bikes doesn't do. It abstracts that because you're playing children. And it kind of, like, Kids on Bikes is made for a different kind of play experience. So even though we bring the same characters, the same kind of story to it, the way that the game works fundamentally changes how that plays.
Oh yeah,
it changed it in a way that was good for us.
Yeah,
but
it changed it in a way that dovetailed nicely with where we were already planning on going. Kind of.
Yeah, because we had a teen drama that had the aesthetic of a zombie apocalypse show.
Right.
And season 2 basically swaps these.
Yep.
And now we have a zombie apocalypse like drama with some relationship drama as the coding threat.
Exactly. And so, but that's an edge case. That's a scenario where things just, like, the stars aligned and it just worked out. But generally speaking, like, if the Walking Dead RPG hadn't gone on Kickstarter and been developed, like, about the time when we needed it to happen, then we would have had a serious problem. Because prior to that announcement, we were casting around looking for, any system that we could, like, maybe kind of twist to fit what we needed it. And I think that would have been a disaster. Honestly, looking back on it, I think that would have been a huge disaster had things not played out in our favor with the Walking Dead.
Honest to God, what probably would have happened is I would have just wrote a modification of Kids on Bikes.
Yeah.
I think that probably would have been the end result of that. Is John writes a modification of Kids on Bikes with Lucas to try and bridge the gap between where we were and where we wanted
young
to
adults on motorcycles.
Young adult.
The natural next step.
Tweens on motorbikes. By Breitbart Games.
What's his name from Terminator? The kid who's like, there's a meme of him. He's just glaring at you.
Yeah, exactly.
Having a prolonged fist fight with Faster Than Light as I try to think of a hotter take than D&D is overrated.
Tweens on mopeds.
There we go.
That's the French
version.
It is. That's the European version of Kids on Motorcycles or of young adults on motorcycles.
Oh my god. Jesus. Ike having a prolonged fist fight with FTL as I try to think of a hotter take than D&D is overrated. I mean, I think it's overrated in the literal sense in that I think it's I don't think it's a bad game. I think it's
I don't know.
It's just I think you're right. But I think you're right in general, Ike, that it is, like, probably not as good as the hype would have you believe it to be.
It's for a game that it has a lot of resources by Warlocks of the Shoreline. Or whatever.
Jesus Christ.
It should be
Warlocks
more of
of the
an
Shoreline.
of a shoreline.
Just one of them.
Anyway,
we don't know which one.
No clue. A shoreline. There's many of them.
Again, I'm sorry. I fully broke down when Emily typed "Les twins on mopeds" takes this like cigarette drag. Like
Perfect.
like I fucking lost it.
Nearly
and it
Human.
would be black and white. It'd be black and white. It'd be almost like
the flare of the cigarette is
film noir, if you will.
Yeah. Newly Human has a good take, I think. A good hot take here. I got here late, so I don't know what we've already covered, but my hot take is that not everything needs to be nice and gentle and wholesome, and I am not a bad person for enjoying darker and more violent stories and themes. This is more of a community hot take than a game design one. Yeah. Oh, no, we're all over the map as far as the types of hot takes we're doing with TTRPGs.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry, yeah, go ahead, John.
I as a designer, I agree with that take. That's not the kind of game that I personally make.
Mm-hmm.
I took a horror game and made it super uwu. Because that's the kind of shit that I do. I'm like, I just have like a few drops of Midwest.
You took a horror game and then chibified it.
Yeah. I was like, there's a horrific, like, eldritch, otherworldly monster that stalks you every time you try to do one of your most essential human functions, but it's really cute, actually. Yeah. And it doesn't want anything to do with you. It just wants only your late night snacks.
Yeah.
Because it's an asshole.
No, I think I agree, even from the perspective, not from a design perspective. I even think from a gameplay perspective. And this is sort of a mistake that I made early on with actual plays, because like actual plays, you kind of start to blur the lines a little bit. I think Kate made a point about this earlier, but like they're sort of like their content, right? So you can't be as flexible with them and like as sort of loosey goosey with actual plays in a lot of cases, because like you don't know who is going to be watching it, and you kind of have to be careful as to like your content and what the actual content of your content is going to be. But the mistake that I made early on is trying to go too far in the direction of just sort of like scrubbing it clean. Like this is kind of one of the issues that I had with Dungeons and Dorm Rooms. Like, and I've talked about this many times. Like even at the time, I was struggling with it because I don't know how to do I think if you gave me the right system with support for it, I could figure it out. But in general, my area tends not to be the like, the wholesome, cozy type game. Like that's not where I like a game with some grit and with some stakes. And like, not to say that cozy games can't have stakes. I just mean I like a game with some grit. And like I don't love to delve too deep and just sort of like revel in the like dark and horrific, but I do like to kind of flirt with that line a little bit generally in my games, and sometimes I'll just jump straight across it, but I don't do the like it's just not a type of media that necessarily appeals to me, except for in specific niche cases. It's not I'm red aligned with you, Newly Human. Like Human says, I'm a horror girly. It is what it is. I'm constantly holding myself back in fear of making other people uncomfortable, and I'd love an opportunity to just go hog wild every now and then. Yeah, no, absolutely. I think this kind of I think goes along with, this is specifically the reason for my earlier hot take of like, I don't think that there is any like generally accepted common wisdom or specific piece of advice or technique for running the game that can be ever under the umbrella of like never do this or always do this, because like you, Newly Human, I also like a game with a darker tone. And there are lots of people who aren't going to like that, and that's fine, but there are plenty of people who do like it, and
I love horror.
Yeah.
Odds had an excellent point up there, which was like, yeah, my spouse doesn't love cozy games, and I remind him that in his real life he has enough cozy that he doesn't seek that in his games.
Yeah,
And I
totally.
think that's a good point. Like, and kind of like dovetailing back into what Newly Human was talking about. Like, I want to I like horror as a thought exercise. I often think the lore of that stuff is kind of interesting, but the experience of it I don't like. Oftentimes because like body horror is an extremely common kind of horror, and like
Yep.
I live a certain amount of body horror, like
Yeah.
in my day to day life, as a person with the chronic health issues that I have, and so it's just like something that I don't do, and that's like I think that other people should fucking have go wild, like have a great time with it, love it. I can't.
Yeah.
So I'll be over here in my chibi blobcat corner.
I also feel like it's important to recognize like the third category of people, right? Because we were talking about like there's the category of people who like, you know, they have enough cozy in their lives that they can do
Right.
that they can right, and then there's the people who like don't have that as much of that, and so they seek out the cozy in their games. But then there's the third category of people who, for them, the weird, horrific shit is the cozy thing.
It's cathartic, you know, or like
That's like, listen, I am not above admitting that The Walking Dead has become one of my like comfort shows. I'm not above admitting. I look. Well, actually, I'll say more Fear the Walking Dead is one of my comfort
sorry,
shows.
I'm just enjoying Freedom taking the elevator out of shot while he's
Yeah, absolutely. Look, and like that's the thing. Like I think the best way for me to the best way to describe what I like in games, I love when they got a little bit of grit to them. You know, I've recently within the last few years come to the realization that I do like grimdark actually, but it's just often written really badly, and that's the
Right.
problem with it. It's often written in a really just cringy, awful way.
oh the 2000s and 2010s and grimdark YA fantasy.
Listen, we don't have to go there. We don't have to do
Give
this.
me grit and give me gunpowder. And
Hell
stop
yeah.
being blurry.
Grit.
Oh, is that what the elevator was about? Like the trying to get it to
My
just, like,
secrets, John. My secrets.
Oh,
All right,
God.
we need
It's
need
true.
an intervention for Freeman's camera.
Just about. It's just it got a
Oh,
little
there we go.
confused. It's like, oh, there's other things in your background. You're interesting, Freeman. Let me
Read
fuck
my
it up
heart.
for you.
Give me grit and give me gunpowder. I'm like, that's gonna be a quote in one of my games somewhere. Like I need to. It's just a great line.
It's yeah.
So okay, Ike, I think I disagree with you, and that makes it a great hot take. So here we go. Ike says,
Ooh.
not sure where the stats lie on this opinion, but another D&D take is that character death should only occur if it serves the story or if the player really did something absolutely stupid and needs to be humbled. Otherwise, adjust on the fly to make a cinematic, fun experience over a true simulation. And I
love
think,
this take. I'm gonna pee while you respond.
yeah, I think this is a perfectly valid opinion to have. It's one I happen not to agree with, but but I totally see where you're coming from. Like I've seen this take, and I 100% understand where that. I happen not to agree, and the reason I happen not to agree, is because I think it has more to do with me as a GM and my approach to storytelling within TTRPGs, which is that you make the story around the things that happen in as opposed to trying to make the story follow like certain obviously you try to make it follow certain narrative beats if you can, but sometimes you can't. There's a certain amount of TTRPGs, namely the parts that involve dice, that you cannot exactly control, and so my approach to TTRPGs and like the storytelling within them is that you make the story around the things that happen, and character death is one of those things. I think, and maybe this is a bias of mine because we literally just had a moment like that last night in our home D&D game where Freeman christened the campaign with the first character death, and it was just like that, and it was over in a moment. It was not a narratively significant moment. It just was a thing that happened, but now narrative significance can come from it.
Oh yeah, I'm going to have fun with that one.
Yeah. So like, totally understand where you're coming from, Ike. And obviously, this is not a Ramblemancy where we like this is good and this is a good and true opinion, and this is not one. And that's not what we're trying to do here. We're just sharing our hot takes. But since we're discussing it, like
I
totally,
think it's
yeah,
like Lucas said, I think it's an excellent hot take.
Absolutely. That's what makes it a great hot take. So
yeah. That's the like I love it when I look at a thing and I go, I don't agree with that, but I know people do, and for good reason.
And like I 100% get why, you know.
And it makes me a little mad. Good hot take. But like, yeah, I think I think my reasonable take on that is that the
lukewarm take.
The lukewarm
it's the
take,
lukewarm version.
Yeah, the rational kind of like explanation to that phenomena is I think it depends on what kind of game you're playing.
Yes.
I think
100%.
that if you are playing a game that is all about power fantasy, if you're playing like powerful characters, or you're playing, if you're trying to like live power fantasies with your tabletop game, then death should basically only happen, like a character death should basically only happen when one of the players or the people at the table agree that it would be cool or good or fun. But if you're playing like old school Renaissance, like there are a lot of like old school Renaissance games are characterized by extremely high lethality because in Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition, it takes for fucking ever to make your character, which is part of the reason that I'm like, I don't want to make another one of those. But like, I mean, I could make a level 3 rogue in 15 minutes, but you want to make like a level 8 wizard? I'm like, no, I need 2 hours. But those games, you can make a character in like fucking minutes, maybe. And I think like it really depends on the kind of game you're playing in and what everybody is agreed on.
Absolutely.
If you're playing with a GM who likes to hunt characters for sport, and that's not the game you wanted to play, it's gonna be a bad time. Or if that's like the kind of tabletop game that you're playing, but what you want is the more like power fantasy, power gaming kind of experience, then it won't feel good if your character is getting like axed all the time.
Yeah. And I think this is why I say this is a totally valid take, because I additionally said maybe this opinion stems from a wholly negative experience in my formative years of playing D&D, where I guested in a friend's campaign, and their DM apparently didn't like me, so he just killed my character with a trap immediately after we fought a boss. Yeah, that's
jackass.
I agree. Nico, I agree with Nico's response to that, which is that's BS. That's absolute. That sucks, and I hate that happened to you, and I'm very sorry that happened to you. Yeah. So like, I can 100% understand a sort of like unwillingness to sort of like stray into that territory. Totally get it. Like I said, it's an opinion I happen not to agree with, but I can 100% see where it's coming from. Like, absolutely. Like, I get it. But yeah, I definitely feel like it like John said, I think that kind of thing depends definitely on the type of game you're playing. It also depends on the table that you're playing with, because some people like our table thrive on just horrible shit happening to the party, because then they know that narratively significant character moments are going to come from it. And like, that's kind of the understanding that we all come to the table with in at our group, is that we all know that like bad shit's going to happen, but we're going to take that bad shit and turn it into something incredible, right? And like, that's what we always do. But I also know that that's not everybody's experience with that kind of thing. So like, it's not the kind of thing that I would say, no, character death should just be random and unforgiving. I'm never going to say that, because I can't possibly know that would be true for somebody's table, so ooh, okay, all right, Ike, here's another hot take. I prefer point buy over random stat generation. Interesting. Okay, all right. That's cool. I mean, feel free to expound on that if you want. I mean, I think it kind of speaks for itself, but if you want to talk more about it, feel free.
I think in a world, listen, my take is that in a world where I can have a number generator that operates between a minimum stat roll and a maximum stat roll, instead of the ability to theoretically roll 4 for all of my character's stats, no matter how fucking unlikely that is, it is a statistical possibility.
Okay, new actual play just dropped on Rule of Lore.
Sorry, no, 3.
No, new actual play just dropped on Rule of Lore. D&D, but all the characters have 3s across the board.
I'm so ready.
Oh my god, no. Like, here's what it is. Here's what it is. It's D&D, but characters have a 3, a 4, a 5, a 6, a 7, and an 8. And that's all you. That's what you get to work with. Like, you get between 3 and 8. Every attribute has -3 to every stat.
No. It's not. It's like, you've heard of D&D playing the heroic characters. You've heard of D&D playing the everyman. Now watch D&D playing literally nobody's choice.
Nobody's choice.
Like, nowhere on the list. They're not the last choice. They are not on the list. They're simply not there.
This is a
we're
great
here
idea.
to save the day. Nobody asked you.
You are welcome.
This is like, this is such a fun abstraction of do the bad idea, and I like having negative stats on my character. Like, so many people love to be like, oh no, it's good that my character has 2 8s actually for stats.
It's like, oh, so I hear you like playing the bad guy. Well, good news for you. I'm bad at everything.
Oh god. Have you heard of min-maxing? Now try min-minning.
Min-minning. I love it.
Oh god.
Oh fuck.
Incredible.
God, that was an incredible hot take that led to a lot of just chaos. Also, that's an incredible Scott Pilgrim reference, Matt. We're here to make you feel awkward and sorry for us. Let's go!
Ike says, point buy is preferred to me because when I make a character, I have a specific vision in mind to build, and not that I build a character based on the random starting stats I get. But I could see how someone could like the randomness of inspiration. Yeah, I tend to fall in that camp but I think for me, and I've talked about this a lot on here, I don't usually have very strong, whenever I am playing, I don't have strong concepts for my characters. So I like randomly rolling my stats. And point buy, my issue, and this is fully a personal issue, this is not a hot take at all, I'm not stating this as like a general opinion, this is just the reason that I personally don't enjoy point buy, is because as a player, I know what I will do. And that is that I will try to like even them out across the board, and then it will A, not be interesting to me, and B, also be extremely average, which is not that fun to play. So, but that's only because I know how I would allocate those points, and I would hate it. Like, I would, so, but, yeah.
Odds.
No, I would like rolling randomly and just like, I have a -6. Okay, this is interesting. What am I gonna, okay. This gives me a little insight on what what I might be doing.
Odd says one of the PCs in my game has a minus constitution, which is wild, and I just think it's funny that he theoretically has the possibility. There is every time he levels up, that man's HP roll is a box of doom roll. Every time he spends a hit die, box of doom roll. Because there's a very real chance.
Yeah.
There's a very real chance that when he tries to recover, he gets galeered and loses HP.
Galeered. Oh, God.
Like,
good.
It was a beautiful reference.
Man.
It was beautiful.
Very true.
I'm gonna take a nap, but I laid on a particularly rare form of poisonous centipede, which bit me on one of my nipples, and I had to go to the hospital for like, that's
Like, it's actually still there. I cannot get it removed without removing parts of my body. So this is just my life now. And
yeah. Like I just think it's very funny.
Please don't add insult to injury.
I'm very
I think
embarrassed
D&D
by it.
as written doesn't have the ability, like I think they tell you somewhere that you can't lose HP when you roll hit die, but it's very funny to me that if that roll wasn't in there, a character with Midas Con loses HP when they try to rest.
Oh my god.
Oh, that's terrible. Yeah. I won't be doing
Yeah.
that.
I think I oh man, I thought of another hot take that I have, and it's gone now. I got fully driven from my brain by minning. And Nico says, hot take, systems should always strive to offer more horizontal than vertical progression. Instead of putting focus on getting better at a certain thing, the system should give you new things to be good at. I agree, actually. I think I agree with that. And I also additionally would say that with vertical progression, flattening that curve a little bit. I think flattening the math that, like, The Walking Dead, I think, is a good example of a game that does that pretty well. You can get better at your stuff, but it's not like you get. First of all, it's not level based. It's entirely based on like gaining skills and allocating them, and it's like there's a ceiling on it, and also like you don't get like exponentially more powerful every time you do it.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah,
I'm a fan of that. Especially in the context of if you are trying to make a game that appeals to certain power fantasies. I think there's only so much up you can do before you run into the problem of like, oh, you can do 20d6 damage to some guy or to like 1,000,000 guys. I'm like, this is just a pain in the ass to track. Like I would rather have the question be not like necessarily if I'm going to be able to do something, not like the MMO is my number big enough, but like the how am I going to handle this? I like being able to diversify my options.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Sorry, I wanted to go back because I there was a bunch of stuff that a bunch of stuff got lost in the depths of minning. And one of those things is Kate saying, quick character creation is great, but I live for quick relationship definer tools, like in Kids on Bikes, etc., where part of the character creation is how does everyone know each other, and what is some of their backstory together. Yeah, I agree. I think that's, I love that kind of stuff, especially, and then to going along with that, Nico's other hot take was creating your characters as a group is better than creating your characters separately, and I think those two things go well together. Because listen, sometimes it's a collaborative activity that you're doing with people at the table. Why would the character creation not be part of that? So yeah, I agree.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
The Matt with the I summon 10 wolves, 5 foxes, 12 snakes, 2 bears, 3 boars, and 1 very mean goose. You got all that? There's actually a stat block in the back of the player's handbook for very mean goose.
Yeah,
it's
actually separate from the stat block for just a regular goose.
Yeah, mm-hmm. It's under like goose comma V.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Kate's make your character part of the group and want to be here, or making your character. Make your character part of the group and want to be there is my other insert rage there. Yeah. If you like I don't want to have to spend my time playing a game convincing your character to participate in the game.
Yeah.
That's not fun.
Yes and no. I agree in general. Like don't actively be antagonistic to like going along. your character can be against going on the adventure, but you, the player, cannot be. So you can have a character who's like, I absolutely do not want to do this. This is stupid. You guys are all dumb. That's so dangerous. Why are we doing this? Um, and then and then go anyway, right? Um, but like, yeah, don't make sure that everybody at the table knows that's what's happening if you're gonna do that. Is all I'm gonna say.
Mhm. Yeah, and like I think the best ways to do that are ways in which you like no but or like
Mm-hmm.
yes but like
Yeah.
things where like it's all about finding ways when you're
Mm.
playing a character who's antagonistic or who is opposed to doing a thing, like finding a way to advance the story while you do that. Like the somebody mentioned improv earlier, and I'm like, in improv, it's sort of bad form to like shut somebody down,
Mm-hmm.
right? You're always kind of building off of the things that you're doing, you know, the other people are doing, and that's true like in group comedy and stuff like that.
Yes, and
And the same is true here. Like yes, and you're like if you're going to be antagonistic, find a way to be antagonistic that still that still advances the story, right?
Yeah. And I think, oh man, I just had, okay, related. Here's a hot take that I have, and I actually think this one might, in fact, be a hot take. Um, which is, I think that role playing in a role playing game is sometimes a barrier to playing the game. Um, I will let me explain. This is a situation that I have come across many times as a GM, and that is your character cannot, by nature of being a fiction created in your own mind, cannot want anything by definition, and they cannot like have their own desires in a practical sense. Which is to say, it's not to say that you cannot play them as having that, but I take issue with players who are like, yeah, I just have such a hard time figuring out why my character would like I just like my character I don't think my character would do this. My character I'm like, you can find a reason. You literally made them up. You can make up that reason. You are
This
yeah.
this is a directly parallel to my favorite tabletop RPG hot take, which
Mm-hmm.
is come closer, microphone. Metagaming good.
Yep. Yeah. Like your character may not know they're in a game, but you the player know that you're in a game, and you the player is the only one in that equation that has agency. So
yeah.
I don't give a shit if you look up the stats for my monster.
mm-hmm.
I don't. I think like the number of times playing a video game that I'm like, man, I cannot damage this boss worth shit, and I go to the wiki and I'm like, YouTube or wiki, how kill boss? And like, yeah, there's ways to do that in game, but like also if I'm playing a D&D game and we all have 4 hours to play and 2 of them are gone and there's a red dragon in front of you, I don't care if you open up the wiki to check whether or not it has fire immunity or fire resistance. I don't.
Yeah.
Your character lives in a world in which it is commonplace for people to turn invisible, throw bolts of flame, for dragons to burn the countryside with various, or like destroy the countryside with various levels of like ridiculous magical power.
Yep.
They would know that. It's fine.
Yep.
Metagaming is literally how you play a tabletop game. It is the role, like it is the play in the game, or rather it's the game in role playing game. Like
mm-hmm.
this is
Yeah.
over here, the game part, metagaming.
Yeah. GMs, please don't be stingy with information. Yes, I agree, Nico. It is literally your job as a GM to give the players information. That is your only job, arguably.
And if you're withholding information, you should you should have a very good reason for that, or you should withhold information in a way that advances the action of whatever is happening here. Like we're kind of talking in D&D terms, but like if I'm withholding information for you, you should either have a mechanical way to get it, like fairly assuredly, or you should have I should be withholding information for some kind of purpose, right? That advances it. It's almost like TTRPGs are communication based, right?
Yeah.
Right?
Yep. And I think, man, I had another thought and I got distracted by GMs don't be stingy with information. That's a thought that's like about this. Man, I think it's gone. But yeah. Yeah. At a certain point with like Newly Human said, at some point we simply must play the game.
Yeah. The G in table, like in RPG role playing game.
I think I remember what I was gonna say, which is kind of like related to this. It's a different TTRPG hot take. I think that no, wait. I thought of a better, more encompassing way to phrase this take. And I think a younger me would be very upset if he heard me say this. But I also don't give a shit because he was 23 and didn't know what the fuck he was talking about. I'm sorry. That's specifically directed at 23-year-old me, not at 23-year-olds in general. And I will say this much. Tabletop RPGs are not good storytelling media. I said it. That's my hot take. I don't think they're good storytelling media. I think you can create good stories out of them. I do not believe that they, like, especially if you're talking about, like, in the literal sense of, right? I know we've had this conversation before, John, and we've also had it with another friend of ours who is often.
I was just thinking of that, and I'm thinking about how my perspective has also changed on
that. It has, and what I realized is he and I actually were talking about this recently, and we realized that our problem back then is that we didn't realize that we were arguing, but we were saying the same thing, but we were just like our definitions were misaligned. That was the problem that we had. It was our definitions that were the problem.
I think if I could inject myself back into that conversation that the three of us were having way back then, and if to sum it up now, I think that the stories that we tell about our tabletop games, if you think about them in the same way as telling a friend a story about a cool thing that you did in a match of Overwatch, a cool thing that you did in a video game, a cool thing that a cool thing that you did while playing a game, and they feel very poignant, I think, because of the very like personal collaborative nature of RPGs, and they're very tropic like media, and so like I don't mean to take away the fact that they feel good. I think that there's a lot of merit to the stories that we get to tell together, but if I want to tell a well-crafted, like clean story, there can't necessarily can't really be dice and involved, and it kind of the experience of a novel is different than of writing a novel is different than the experience of writing for a tabletop RPG game.
And the reality is that I think the way that events play out in a tabletop RPG, I actually think is not a whole lot different than I can tell you, or actually better example of, because it's a real example of something that actually happened. You told us earlier the story of this, like bringing us full circle of like the mom and her little girl coming into the gym, right? And and selling Girl Scout cookies. Was that a story? I mean, it was in the sense that you were recounting something that happened to you, But it wasn't like somebody somewhere wrote that out and was like, all right, at this moment, John is going to pause in the conversation, turn around, see this, and have this epiphany in that moment that's going to result in this character change in John. Like, what, right? Like, that's not what happened. And I think a TTRPG is more like that than it is, because it is just events that happened. And, like, they have narrative significance. Like, they're narrative moments, they have narrative significance, right? But I wouldn't call it a story so much as it is a chain of events that took place. It is a sequence of events that took place.
We've come back around to one of my favorite articles by Jay Dragon of Possum Creek Games, which refers to playground theory.
Also, correct, Ike.
That's just in Lucas firmly against deterministic destiny. I'm not going to try and paraphrase Jay's words here, but the gist of the article is essentially, like, everything we need to know about play we learned how to do on the playground, playing together as kids, and like that's kind of what we're doing when, like, playing tabletop RPGs is not so different than when we were kids and running around going like, I shoot you with a laser cannon, and I'm like, no, I have an impenetrable anti-laser shield, but I have an anti-impenetrable laser shield laser cannon that shoots through, like, you know.
Yeah
It's not so different than that. We've just, you know, we're adults and we crave, or we're older than that, and we crave different things or more pieces to play with, different shaped things to hold and to fuss around with. But it's kind of like fundamentally the same experience, which is a form of storytelling. But as Nico put it earlier, they're a storytelling medium, not necessarily a creation engine. You don't walk into a tabletop RPG with a story to tell. You walk in with a type of story to tell, perhaps.
Yeah, you walk in with like a type of story, or if not a type of story, then at the very least a set of circumstances within which events will take place, you know, that will shape events, you know. And yeah, I that's my hot take.
I'm about to use some randomized tables to have kids generate improv scenes and story ideas, because it's the same.
Yeah.
Like, we've structured play.
There it is.
Yep.
Oh man. Okay. We got really on a roll there with a lot of like hot takes, especially towards the back half of this episode, because they were just rolling in at one point, which was excellent. But unfortunately we didn't have time to like kind of go into the deep dive in all of them. But yeah, we are very much past the end of our time. So we are going to go. But man, thank you so much everybody for coming and like sharing your stuff. It is, I think, an act on, like, I'm saying this only like maybe like 1/4, like 25%, like jokingly, but mostly sincerely. It is in fact an act of like vulnerability on some level to share your controversial opinions about a fundamentally vulnerable activity.
Yeah,
this is very true.
So like thank you everybody for being willing to share yours here and feeling comfortable doing that, and also thank you for helping, like, for being the sort of welcoming and open sort of people to make us feel safe sharing ours with you. So yeah, it's always a fun time coming in and discussing this stuff, especially because like we all know there's not really like a whole lot of judgments here when it comes to this kind of stuff. At the end of the day, it's all pretty low stakes. So unless you're fighting a Tarrasque, in which case the stakes can be pretty high potentially. And by the stakes, I'm not STEAK, right? Because Tarrasques, the stakes are. Anyway, we're gonna go. Thanks so much for.
Thinking about the Tarrasque steak.
Now I'm thinking about how you would like
Tarrasque steak.
Like, I've abstracted to a whole new level of power in D&D, where I'm like deific entities being like, all right, so this is how you break down the Tarrasque. The best stakes are up here at this very high off the ground for the mortals.
especially like if it's like the older Tarrasque that has like the regen, right? It's like but you got to be fast. You got to eat it fast, or else a whole new Tarrasque will grow out of that one.
That's some fucking Kronos eating his children and having them grow to full. Like the god, there's the reason that there's so many Tarrasques is that the gods ate a bunch of Tarrasques.
Yeah,
but then they like grew to Anyway,
totally. Anyway,
that's some fucked up creation myth right there that I'm really into.
That's got some legs, mostly Tarrasque legs. Let's go. Let's leave. All right. Good night, everybody. Thank you so much for coming and hanging out and sharing your hot takes with us. We will see you next week probably for Ramblemancy, but if not, we'll see you the next time you decide to come roll with us. Thank you. Good night and good zone.